Spread of Buddhism in India. Buddha's two types of followers, monks, bhikshus, and lay worshippers, upasakas. For the sake of disseminating his teachings, the monks were organized into the Sangha. The Sangha was democratically run and had the authority to maintain discipline among its members. Even during Buddha's lifetime, Buddhism advanced rapidly in North India thanks to the Sangha's concerted efforts. Following Buddha's death, his followers continued on his meditation path and traveled the countryside. Until the arrival of the great Mauryan king, Ashoka, Buddhism was overshadowed by its Hindu competitors for 200 years. The slaughter of his Kalinga invasion, Emperor Ashoka decided to abandon his worldly conquering agenda in favor of Dhamma conquest. Various Buddhist missions were dispatched by Ashoka during the Third Buddhist Council to places like Gandhara, Kashmir, Greece, Sri Lanka, Burma, Myanmar, Egypt, and Thailand. Ashoka's missionary efforts spread Buddhism throughout West Asia and Ceylon. As a result, a local religious sect became a global religion. Impact of Buddhism. Buddhism has made a significant contribution to the development of Indian culture, most notably through the notion of ahimsa. It made a significant contribution to Indian art and architecture. The stupas in Sankai, Bharat, and Gaya are magnificent works of art. Residential universities were employed to promote education, such as those at Taxila, Nalanda, and Vikramasila. Buddhism's teachings influenced the development of Pali and other local languages. It also aided in the spread of Indian culture throughout Asia. Buddhism as a soft power in India is not the same as it is in other cultures. India places a greater focus on shared cultural growth than on cultural export. The effect of Lord Buddha's and Buddhism's teachings can be linked to the ideals of peace, accommodation, inclusion, and compassion that are part of modern societies. Buddhism is not limited to Asia. It has sparked spiritual awakenings in other parts of the world and impacted a variety of intellectual systems. India today has a variety of resources, including pilgrimage sites, the presence of the Dalai Lama, and international goodwill, as well as the necessary intentions. Decline of Buddhism. Buddhism began to fade away from its birthplace in the early 12th century. The following are some of the factors that contributed to Buddhism's decline. Corruption in the Buddhist Sangha. The Buddhist Sangha grew corrupt over time. Receiving rich presents drove them in the direction of luxury and pleasure. The Buddha's teachings were conveniently forgotten, and the Buddhist monks and their preachings began to suffer as a result. Sects of Buddhism. Buddhism has had its share of sects over the years. Buddhism's originality was lost as a result of its fragmentation into several breakaway groups such as Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Tantrayana, and Sahajayana. Buddhism had lost its simplicity and was becoming more convoluted. Use of Sanskrit language. During Kanishka's reign, however, Sanskrit superseded these in the Fourth Buddhist Council. Sanskrit was a language of a few intellectuals, rarely understood by the general public, and so became one of the many reasons for Buddhism's demise. Pali, the spoken language of the majority of Indians, was the medium through which the Buddhist message was conveyed. The Mahayana Buddhists were the first to introduce image worship to Buddhism. They began to venerate the Buddha's image. The Buddhist teachings of rejecting complicated ceremonies and rituals of Brahmanical worship were violated by this method of worship. Buddhists were persecuted. The Brahmanical faith rose to prominence again through time. Some Brahmana monarchs, such as Huna king Pushyamitra Shunna, Mihirakula, Shiva worshipper, and Shaivite Shashank of Gauda, persecuted Buddhists en masse. The generous donations to the monasteries began to dwindle. Conquest of India by Muslims. The Muslim invasion of India nearly wiped off Buddhism. Their invasions of India became routine, and the Buddhist monks were compelled to seek asylum and shelter in Nepal and Tibet. Buddhism eventually faded out in India, its birthplace.